Welcome back to Judeacation here on JNS TV. My name is Josh Hasten, broadcasting from the JNS Media Hub here in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Of course, this show gets into the lives of the residents of Judea and Samaria, the pioneers on the front lines in Israel's biblical heartland. And I have a very special guest here today, Miriam Fuld, a friend of mine for some time now, resident of Efrat in Gush Etzion. Many of you might have heard of, I'm actually pretty certain you've heard of Ari Fuld, of blessed memory, may God avenge his blood, who was murdered in a terrorist attack, Miriam's husband, on September 16th, 2018, over 6 years ago, at the Gush Etzion Junction, as he was outside of the Rami Levy supermarket. A highly influential individual, an influencer, a Torah teacher, a karate expert, and so much more. And Miriam, it's first of all, it's great to have you on. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
But before we talk about Ari, your husband, and his legacy and everything that he means to so many people out there, I want to talk about Miriam Fuld, if we can for now. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My parents made Aliyah in 1982 when I was really young. I was in 4th grade. And it wasn't so in back in those days. It was a big process, 7 hours waiting online in the Misrat Panim to get your Teudat Zehut. So I grew up in Israel. Ari's family actually came to Israel on sabbatical for 1 year when we were in 11th grade, and we met then. We became friendly. Ari went back to the States for 12th grade, and then he came back to Israel after high school to Yeshivat Kotel, and I was doing my Sharut Lumi.
Your national service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was it. We started going out that year. And Ari decided to stay in Israel after that year. He drafted into the army, into a lone soldier program called Machal, Mitnadvei Chutz La'aretz, a volunteering program. And he served in the Golani Brigade. And a year afterwards, his parents decided to make Aliyah in 93. We got engaged. We got married after that.
And you are an artist by trade, if I understand?
I'm an artist. I went to Emunah Art School after my 2 years of Sharut Lumi. I love doing anything crafty, so it keeps me busy. I have a lot of hobbies.
Very nice. I want to get to Ari now if we can. There are a lot of people who remember, I'm sure you do as well, where you were when the Challenger exploded, where you were when 9/11 happened. And I would bet, and myself included, there are a lot of people who remember where they were when they found out that Ari Fuld was murdered. He had such an influence over so many people, touched so many lives. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, that's about the first thing that people always mention to me. I remember. Exactly. I was working in Jerusalem at the time. Ari was he was going to start working with Ateret Kohanim in the Old City. Ari had not worked for a couple of months before that, and he was already doing tours through the Muslim Quarter and all of Jerusalem, and he was starting all of these other campaigns. He had just come back from China. He went to China for 2 weeks to give a motivational seminar. So, he was just starting that the whole journey of his own. And I said, listen, it's a couple days before, Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So why don't you just go shopping? Because I'm stuck at work in Yerushalayim. You have time. So he went. And a friend of mine, her daughter was in the area, and she texted and said, I heard that there was a terror attack, a stabbing. And I knew that every time that Ari heard about something, he would run to there to give an accurate account of what was going on from there. Because there was so much news that was going out, so much inaccuracy. And Ari really wanted to give the picture as it was. But not only that, I think part of his thing was also to not instill fear in people. One of his messages that he kept saying was, please come here and be with us here. This is where we belong. Come and stand here with us. And so I immediately texted him and I said, I heard that something happened at Somat Gush at the Gush Etzion Junction. So just let me know that you're okay because you're probably on your way there to report.
Right.
He did a lot of live Facebook feeds back then. And he didn't answer me. And about 10 minutes later, again, I texted. I said, maybe he doesn't have Wi-Fi. I'll send him a proper SMS. And still he didn't answer. And then I got a call from the psychology department in the Moatza of Efrat. Where are you? What are you doing? And I said, what happened? Immediately, I knew. And they wouldn't answer me. And I asked and I asked. And at this point, I was already packing my bag. Just tell me where he is. And they said he's on his way to Shari Tzedek Hospital. So I heard that there was shooting. I said, was it Ari shooting? Because that was my first initial reaction. Before the Second Lebanon War, 2006, Ari got his emergency Tzav Shmona, got called up to Lebanon. At this point, he was already serving with the Tzanchanim, with the paratroopers brigade. And somebody asked me, aren't you afraid? I said, no, it's Ari. I'm not afraid for Ari. They're the ones who should be afraid. And that was my same feeling on that day. But a couple of hours later, when we already heard the worst, we were already at the hospital. They were working on him. There was nothing that could be done. Immediately, when we heard, or when we saw the footage, when we heard exactly what happened, the details, nobody could have asked, nobody could have, this was Ari. This was Ari, protecting Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, chasing after a terrorist, even with a fatal wound in his back. That was Ari. That was the essence of Ari.
He was a larger-than-life personality, and I was just going to get to that. I mean, his last act on the planet was literally saving lives with a fatal stab wound to his back, chasing down the terrorists, preventing the terrorists from harming other people at the scene. Mm-hmm. I know the lady you're friends with now who ran the falafel store there, who says that Ari saved her life. There's no doubt about it. And we have the video to show, of the event and her running away and Ari chasing down the terrorist. I mean, his last act on this planet, in this world, was saving other lives.
Exactly. According to the terrorists' confession, he said he was on his way into that mall to kill more. And Ari, Ari was a 4th degree black belt. And in those days, there was a lot of stone throwing on the roads. There was a lot of things happening. And Ari taught a lot of self-defense classes. And I think his initial reaction was just to protect. And he was going to stop this terrorist from causing any more harm. That's what he did.
Talk about his life, his legacy, his work for Israel. You said that he wasn't employed for a few months there, but I would take issue with that. Maybe not technically employed at that point, but anytime there was something going on here in Israel, Ari was there. I know this firsthand. I mean, we spent time together at different events when our government took down houses in the Nativ Avot neighborhood in Elazar. Ari was there. When the situation down in the south, when there was something going on in Sderot, and we'll show the clip here in just a few minutes, Ari went down there to express his solidarity with the people of Sderot and to show to the world what is the reality of life under fire. And how relevant is that today? But that's a lot of introduction there. But if you can, just touch upon his legacy, the people he touched, and the work that he did, whether it was a paid job or whether it was him volunteering for the people of Israel.
Yeah. To narrow it down, I think Ari's whole essence was Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Torat Yisrael. That anything having to do with protecting Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael, protecting Eretz Yisrael, which is, of course, Army. Ari, after Ari served in that program, we were already married. We had 2 children, and he spoke to a friend of his who got called up for reserve duty. And Ari said, wait a minute, how come I didn't get called up? And he did a little bit of research, and they told him, because you served in this program, you don't need to do reserve duty. And he said, Ma pitam, no way. He started to write letters at the time to Rechavam Zevi, who he was very close with, in Mifleget Moledet. And Rehavam Zevi wrote letters to the president.
He was a minister in the government.
He was.
Zevi.
And it was about 2 weeks after Rehavam Zevi was murdered that we got a letter from him in the mail saying, don't worry, Ari, you're going to get reinstated. You're going to get a phone call from the recruitment office, and they're going to reinstate you into active duty. And sure enough, he did. And he went down to the recruitment office, and the chayalet there, the soldier, says to him, what are you doing here? And he says, they're going to reinstate me. And she said, are you crazy? And he took about 20 minutes to sit with her outside to explain to her how proud she should be to be putting on this uniform every single morning and to protect our one and only country. And because his old unit had already, continued without him, so they reinstated him with the paratroopers. And that's where he served until the end. And at age 40, you automatically get discharge papers.
Right.
And it was Ari's commander that actually called him and said, did you get those discharge papers? Rip them up. We're not letting you go. And Ari said, that's fine, because I'm not going anywhere. And he served there till the last time he went to Miluim, to his reserve duty, was March of 2018. And he stopped by his parents' house to say goodbye. And his mother said to him, Ari, come on, you're 45 years old. How long are you going to keep doing this? And he said, Ma, until the last breath leaves my body. And that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
That this is, for Ari, there was no greater purpose than to serve your country and to protect your country and to protect Am Yisrael. And that's what he did that day.
How did he get into the whole social media world, and when did he make a decision that this is going to be my platform in addition to the Army service and the reserves and everything else, teaching self-defense, teaching kids?
Yeah.
How did he get involved in all that?
I think Ari's, I think his essence was always not only education. He comes from a long line of educators, but it was also standing up for the truth, which is also one of the things he taught in karate or in his self-defense classes. He always said, if you're in a situation, in a hostile situation, and you feel threatened, the first thing that you do is you run away as fast as you can. But if you can't run away, if there's no way for you to get away, then I will teach you to defend yourself. And that's exactly what Ari was doing. I think that social media for him was a tool, but it wasn't just a tool of, to get his name out there. It was, if I can spread the truth to people farther, how much farther can I reach? He would always come home and he'd say, look at this guy in Taiwan. He liked my post. This guy in Saudi Arabia shared my post. To him, it was, if I could reach Saudi Arabia, if I could reach Taiwan, imagine how much farther I can reach. And those people also not only hear the truth, but hear firsthand exactly what's going on. There are so many entities out there that are spreading lies. They just don't know. And I always say it's the most important thing to get your information firsthand. You don't know what's going on? Get on a plane, come to Israel. Come and see what's going on firsthand, and then you'll know. I think that's exactly what Ari was doing. Every time he heard the sirens in Sderot, rockets flying in Sderot, he went down to Sderot to, not only to support, but also, I'm going to tell you exactly what's happening. This is it. I took the video.
On that note, I want to play a clip right here. This was a few months before Ari was murdered. This is actually Ari and myself. I know you've seen the clip.
Right.
Outside the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. We were just having coffee together. We were going to do an interview the very next day. And Ari had just come back from Sderot, where he went down as the rockets were falling. Most people run for shelter. Ari did the opposite. He went down to Sderot. Let's play this clip. You want to hear the full interview, how Ari got in his car, drove down there with baked goods and other things to give to the residents, and really to show his support and the support of the people not in the South for all those living under fire. Ari, anything to add to that?
Listen, people, there's only one message we got to add. Remember, terrorism, the goal is to instill fear. They will lose, and they will lose because Josh and I are sitting right in front of the walls of Jerusalem having coffee. They will lose because the people in Sderot in the South and all the Kibbutz team are out there living their lives. They will lose because we are so thirsty for life while they are so thirsty for death. They will lose. The Assyrians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Nazis, they're all gone. We are here. We are living. We are thirsty for life. And that's why Israel will continue to blossom and to continue to be strong. It's amazing. We're living in miraculous times.
So there's a clip that Ari and I did together, and what a privilege it was to be with Ari on that day outside the walls of the old city. And he said the following. He said, "They will lose, our enemies will lose, because we are so thirsty for life and they are so thirsty for death." Your comment on that?
It's true. It's true. I'm waiting for the day when the world will finally stand up and say, we are so sick of this hatred. You know, Ari and I raised 4 children in Israel. We raised them to be good human beings, good people, to respect one another, to respect mankind. And we are fighting an entity that just wants to spread hatred and murder and death. And I don't want my children growing up in a world like that. I don't want my grandchildren growing up in a world like that. And I hope one day that the rest of the world sees that as well, that Israel is a peaceful nation, and you know, we just want to raise our children peacefully to contribute to mankind, not to spread this hatred and this negativity all the time.
Absolutely. I wanted to have you here in studio originally before Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Memorial Day, because I thought it was appropriate to talk about Ari on Memorial Day. Alas, that didn't happen, but I do have you here just 2 days after Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, which I know from you and from others was actually Ari's, correct me if I'm wrong, his favorite holiday on the Jewish calendar. Always marching in the parade and very active. And I know in his memory, there's actually now a big banner outside the Kotel, the Western Wall, with a picture of Ari. And you can, explain what that's all about. But talk about his love for Jerusalem Day.
Yeah. Oh, Ari loved it. And I think that anybody who has been in Jerusalem on Jerusalem Day, just you see it, thousands and thousands of people coming from all over the country and all over the world just for this one day, to wave flags, to walk through the free streets of Jerusalem. Ari's father tells us all the time that when he came to Jerusalem, before they took down that wall in 1967, said you just got to the end of Rehov Yaffo and there was just a big wall. You could not see the old city. Right. And now we're walking free here. And that is incredible, because this is Ari always said, when you pick up the Bible and you walk in the footsteps of our forefathers, of the Nevi'im, that's the future of Am Yisrael. This is our heritage and this is our future. You have to know where we came from, but you also need to know where you are going. And I think, to simplify it, just the joy that you see on everybody walking through the streets, everybody's happy, everybody waving flags. I think that was one of the major things that Ari loved about Jerusalem, about Jerusalem Day. It's just a great vibe. It's just everybody's happy. And
he not only was he marching and celebrating or whatnot, but he was also busy with the TV cameras in front of him, those who wanted to talk to him. Yeah. You know, people always make Jerusalem Day into some sort of political controversy of, radical Israelis or whatnot. But it was just a natural thing to celebrate the liberation of the city. And he had to deal with those cameras also, even on Jerusalem Day. Yeah. Something that I lack that Ari had. He had a vast knowledge of history, of fact. He knew exactly who was here in the region throughout the years, what wars we fought and against who. And he always said, if you need the tools to fight the haters out there, you need to know the facts. And that is the greatest tool to be able to fight back. You need to have that knowledge. And Ari had that. And I think that we always joke and we say, I don't know if they found him or he found them, but somehow he was always being interviewed by Al Jazeera or by some, leftist group or something. Right. But he knew how to answer. And I think for that reason, they also did not like to publicize their interviews with him, because he knew the truth. He knew how to answer, and I don't think they like that very much. But yeah, whether he found them or they found him somehow. It did happen at the end of the day. Right. It's going to get difficult now. The next subject, I should say, that I want to discuss. We're in the midst of a war right now. Today is actually day 600 since the brutal Hamas massacre on October the 7th. and the ensuing war. In one of the hostage deals, the terrorist murderer who murdered Ari was actually released. This was, I think, several months ago. I don't know where he is. You probably have more details than I do in terms of, what's going on there. But at that time, he was 16, 17 when he murdered Ari. He's now, from what I understand, free, back on the streets. Try to help us with that. Where is your head? What are you thinking? Just break it down. I mean, it's got to be very, very difficult. I just want to hear your thoughts on all that.
It's kind of sad. It took us 2 years to convict our terrorist, which is in itself a ridiculous story. 2 years to convict a terrorist who was caught on the spot with Ari's blood all over his hands and the knife still in his hand. That's sort of ridiculous. He was convicted and sentenced to life in jail. We knew that it was a possibility, not from any official statement. We heard from here, from there. My brother-in-law, who works in the Knesset, notified us. And we knew that it was a possibility that he would be part of the deal to release hostages. The last part of the deal with those hostages that were delayed, the
Right.
part that was delayed, he was in that one. So he was one of the last ones to be released. As I understand now, I don't know exactly. All of the terrorists are now in interim hotels somewhere, I think, on the border of Egypt. So eventually he's meant to be extradited to Qatar or Turkey. I'm not really sure. It sounds kind of funny to say that it doesn't really matter because Ari is no longer here. Nothing's going to bring Ari back. But these hostage deals brought back hostages to their families. And I think that instead of focusing on the fact that Ari's murderer is free and his family is celebrating, they celebrated his actions before. They're celebrating now. They're living a wonderful life, being financed by the Palestinian Authority for this heinous act that their son committed. We need to focus on the fact that these hostages came home to their families. We cannot win this war with this hostage issue still on the table.
That's pretty unbelievable of you to say that.
It's a fact. It's
Yeah.
a fact. We've got 58 hostages that are still there, and we cannot move forward. Our whole nation is divided, where we want to win a war, and yet we still have hostages there. As a nation, as a country, we cannot move forward with this issue still on the table. We need to resolve this issue. I'm not a politician. I cannot give you advice, but this needs to be done, and we need to live in peace and quiet. We are a tiny, tiny little country in the middle of 23 enemies.
I hear you. I understand. But it's without a doubt very, very difficult and very, very sticky. That whole situation, I can't imagine, what it was for you that day itself, knowing that this murder was going to go free.
This terrorist woke up that day. Quite a few things happened that day before he actually got to the Gush Etzion Junction, which only proves to me his determination to go out and kill, in his words, Zionist pigs. Mm-hmm. That's what he's going to do that day. That was his intent when he woke up that day. Ari and I had 4 children. That is Ari's legacy. It lives on through them. That's how Ari lives on. And you want to try to compare those two stories? You can compare. I know which one sends a stronger message.
You mentioned the Palestinian Authority before, and you right now are in the midst of a court case, I believe all the way up to the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., suing the PA/PLO for Ari's murder. If you can, I know it's very, very complicated, all the legal jargon. But if you can, just update us on what's going on with that court case. I know JNS has covered it. I think I know we had a reporter in the courtroom itself, but just update those who may not know.
Yeah, very legal. And my understanding of it is very simple. Ari was an American citizen. And as an American citizen, we are entitled to sue in U.S. court. Sue the PA and the PLO, of course, for compensating this terrorist for doing what he did. As they call it, pay for slay. We sued in New York court. We got denied, went to a secondary court. The PA said that our claim is unconstitutional. And when you have a claim like that, it automatically gets bumped up to the Supreme Court. And then they have to decide if they are going to hear your case, which they did. And we went to the Supreme Court on April 1st. As I understand, and I will explain in my very, very simple understanding, number one, can we sue the PA and the PLO in U.S. courts? But also, can we sue for something that happened 7,000 miles away? The PA and the PLO, on the one hand, want to be recognized as an official sovereign, as an official organization in the United States, because then they'll get financial aid. But they don't want to be recognized for the terrorism that they support. And they full out admit that they support it. But hey, because the U.S. doesn't recognize us and they don't give us financial aid, so you can't sue us for the terrorism that we support. That's basically the bottom line. There was a lot of different talk there, which I didn't really understand. But as my kids see it, Ari's name will forever be in the Supreme Court, and that's most important. And this case, I think, will set precedent for many, many other terror victims, not only from Israel, but all around the world. Islamic terror is now on the rise everywhere. And let's see if the Supreme Court decides to take a stand against international terrorism like this. We'll have to wait and see.
Praying they do the right thing. When is the final decision going to be made?
I think they said by the end of June.
Okay, so it's coming up. It's right around the corner. So praying that they do the just thing, the moral thing, and the right thing. I want to finish off just with one last item here. The Ari Fuld Project, the organization which was formed in memory of Ari and his legacy. Talk about the project and what are you guys working on right now in order to memorialize all of the important work. There's nobody's going to be like Ari Fuld, okay? I'll say that flat out. There's nobody like him. Right. I mean, he was an inspiration to so many, myself included. I probably wouldn't be in this chair right now if it wasn't for Ari and the inspiration and the opportunities that I got through Ari. By the way, I don't know if I ever told you this. Several hours before he was murdered, he sent me a text. I got a message from him because he had given me an opportunity at a different station. He couldn't make it that day, and I subbed in for him to appear on this TV show. And he just, on that Saturday night, he sent me a message late, like at 2 a.m. He was probably up doing his thing, saying, "Great job, you did great on TV." Right. So I thanked him. That was just a few hours before. Ari Fuld Project, talk about that. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to, I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but you. We were in touch just a few hours before. The project. The project. First of all, Ari was already doing this before. So it was really, it really wasn't even a question for us. Ari was already supporting soldiers, already spreading the truth, Hasbara, social media, everything that he was doing, giving his tours around the Old City. We all know from his videos that he used to go always to the Old City on Thursday nights, right? And to the Kotel. So immediately, Ari's friend, Steve Levitt, immediately said, we have to do something. And we started the Ari Fuld Project, basically to continue everything that Ari was involved in. So at the beginning, it was scholarships for anybody who came to Israel for the year and wanted to stay for Shana Bet on the condition that they're going to go to the army, hopefully make Aliyah. That was always, Ari's push there. And
But then after October 7th, we really were able to get into it because so many units really needed help. And we were already doing it before the war, and we already made those connections. It just enabled us to hit the ground running and to continue doing, which thank God we've really been able to do a lot. We don't have any manpower. We don't have any warehouses of equipment. The Army actually tells us what they need, and then we open campaigns and we manage to get them the equipment that they need. We're not going to guess what they need. We're not going to give them socks if they need underwear. We're not going to give them underwear if they need helmets. And we're not going to give them helmets if they need drones. So they tell us what they need. Currently, we are most of the requests we're getting now are for drones and for protective eye gear for the soldiers. And we are building the Ari Fuld Bet Midrash in Efrat.
That's a house of Torah study.
Yes, adjacent to the synagogue where we live, where we raise our children. Hopefully the Ari Fuld Bet Midrash will be built also in memory of two very brave members and soldiers, Roe Weiser, who was killed on October 7th at Mavar Erez, at the Erez crossing, and Elkanan Neulander, who was killed in January. And I hope that we'll be able to do that for them. And you can always check out arifuld.org, our website, and see all the campaigns that we're running. If you never met Ari, you can go online, watch his videos. He's got a lot of material out there. Watch him, be inspired by him. His memory keeps inspiring others.
Amen to that. He's not very hard to find. You just have to go online. You can type in Ari Fuld Project. Check it out and do what you can to help further all of these very, very important campaigns.
Right.
Miriam Fuld, thanks so much for coming in today. I appreciate it. And only good things. Let's hear good news from this point on.
Thank you so much.
I want to thank the production team here at JNS TV, Yuri Svertsky, Esther Eden, Ryan Lifshitz, and Zach Sickerman. Make sure you go to jns.org for the latest breaking news from Israel, the Middle East, and the entire Jewish world. My name is Josh Hasten. This has been another edition of Judeacation here on JNS TV. Have a great week, everybody.